Evening, Mike. How you doing? Better. I was not feeling too well yesterday. So I don't think I'm 100%, but I'm planning to be back tomorrow in the office and resume my duties. So should be okay. Thanks for asking. I guess. I mean, at least it could have been worse. It could have been last week instead of this week, I guess. Although I did miss out on some classes yesterday with the kids. So hopefully get those rescheduled. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't really know if this was contagious or anything, but let's make sure it's kind of gone before I get back into the swing. But like I said, I think I should be back normal by tomorrow and ready to go for sure. Well, Mike, well, you're the only one here. If you got any questions, go ahead and type them. Or if you want to come on to the Google Meet, you can click the link in the description or whatever. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of fascinating. I think I've maybe edit one thing on that is that apparently the time of mourning starts after the funeral. So we actually have 9 days from Saturday. So we're in the time of mourning now. As a matter of fact, we're gonna have a mass tomorrow, memorial mass for Pope Francis at the daily mass, and then yeah. So the conclave doesn't start then until like the 6th because it has to start after the days of mourning, but it also has to start between 15 and 20 days after the Pope's death. So I think the earliest they're planning is due the 6th. So yeah, that's the only edit I have. I think everything else is pretty accurate. Um, yeah, the papal funeral also was kind of odd. I mean, not odd in the fact that it was, weird, but there's some things done that I was kind of surprised. Like I didn't watch it; I was kind of listening on the radio, and my dad made a comment that apparently everyone was wearing red, and he was like, "Why is that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know, because that's not even a color for the season, let alone for a funeral." So that was kind of different. I'm not sure if it was because they were just Cardinals, but that also wouldn't make a difference. Um, the other thing that was kind of odd is they did a confiteor doing during the mass, like a penitential rite, which you don't do that for a funeral. So someone else said they did a Gloria. I don't recall that. But even then, you actually could say, well, because it's the Easter octave, I personally don't know why they just didn't wait till after the octave. That probably would have clarified a lot more things. I would hate to be the MC for those things because there's a lot of things going on, and I'm sure there's a lot of influence from the different Cardinals and anyone else. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that happened at the funeral too. Yeah, I like I said, I don't know. I know I was just listening on the radio. It was the replay, and they even kind of prefaced that by saying the commentator was saying how they're going to do the Confiteor, and I was like, well, you don't do Confiteor at a funeral. And then I after the Confiteor, I don't remember a Gloria being sung, but I mean, I guess it could have been for the octave. Yeah, it was just a different. It's just a lot of different things going on there, so it's always interesting to kind of see how Rome does it compared to other places. Although there's also a lot of consternation, I think, because other locations were doing memorial masses during the octave, which funerals are allowed. Funerals you have the body, so sure you can do that during the octave because people die. That's just kind of part of the process. Um, but memorial masses are not allowed during the Easter octave. So there's a lot of places going on that had memorial masses during the octave, and that was kind of odd. So there is some kind of question about who has the authority to allow that. Um, some would say that the local ordinary, the bishop, would have full autonomy to make that call. I don't know. I think that's a matter of universal law where it comes to like these times and seasons are directed for a particular purpose. So I don't know. That's kind of above my pay grade. I might have to find that out to have a better answer. Yeah, it also is all in Latin, which also is kind of fascinating. Considering the Holy Father has, he kind of had a, I don't want to say an affinity, but like maybe kind of uh, a lack of desire. I don't know for Latin. I mean, I know there's a lot of critique, and that's unfortunate, especially so shortly after he passed, that people were kind of critiquing him. Even now, it's kind of you don't really want to do that during the time of mourning. It's time will tell how his papacy is going to really affect the churches overall. Um, but I mean, the old the papal document about the not the elimination, but maybe like leaving up to the bishops about what to do for the traditional Latin mass. Um, it seems interesting that Latin was used because even in papal masses, even like for like Christmas, Easter, usually you do it in Italian, or you could do it. They also have usual multiple language they would do, especially for the readings. So the fact it was all in Latin was surprising in some ways. But maybe that's kind of the way, maybe the way they're trying to find balance between the Holy Father's directive and the rest of the church. I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was rather fascinating. Of course, the readings were multiple languages, which also, that's kind of common for those type of masses. Although even then, there's sort of a lacuna, a question about those things because the general instruction of the Roman Missal, is very clear about not mixing languages. So, many places. I mean, we do that at St. Anne, where during certain seasons we'll probably do more Latin parts or Greek parts. Uh, the Kyrie is always in Greek. You don't really say that in Latin, but yeah, there's sort of a thought that well, if you do it all Latin, you do it all Latin. You don't really want to mix languages, or doing it like in English and Spanish is not necessarily proper. Or English and French, or French and Spanish, whatever it is. You don't really want to mix languages. So that's always kind of an interesting situation. I guess you could argue that Latin, being the tongue of the church, could always be used, even in relation to the vernacular. But yeah, so it was. I don't know. That was kind of interesting. Um, it's an interesting discussion anyway. But even if you don't know Latin, you can still follow along. I mean, it was just a funeral mass. Can you remind me what that is? We're talking about the same line of Cardinal Rabiba. So you're saying they actually are like kind of fall within the that kind of familial line? Yeah, I don't know. Uh yeah, I mean, I don't know. There is some kind of thought that a lot of the popes had some familial connection. It may be true. I mean, there was a lot of nepotism going on back in the Middle Ages. Possibly. I don't know. I don't know if Pope Francis fell within that line. I mean, he was Italian by heritage, so I don't know if John Paul II would fall into that line, but maybe, or even Benedict for that matter, because he was German. Um, I guess there's always some connection in Europe with certain lineages. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like our family is, almost 100% Irish, so I would imagine if someone in my family would call it would be the Pope. I don't know if that would be a connection, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, with the conclave, obviously there may be some influence from the older cardinals, as far as like uh, who is influential, who maybe they would prefer. I don't know though if every cardinal is a little bit different, and especially with this conclave might be interesting because there's such a diversity of the college from all over the world. Now, of course, a wise prelate would probably want to listen to the elders and figure out, see at least what their opinion is. But also, too, like, I don't know, this might be very interesting, the fact that we have so many cardinals from different backgrounds. Like I said last week, one of the interesting aspects of this is just like these times right now leading up to the conclave is just really for the cardinals to get to know each other, because many of them probably don't know each other. And so, yeah, I don't know. This might be unique in that respect. Um, yeah, but I mean, as far as like how that goes, mm, you know, I always, like I said, it's you have to trust the Holy Spirit's guide in this, or else you probably wouldn't get a person like John Paul II or even someone like Francis. Um, you can even say people like maybe like John the 23rd, or even going back farther. There has been some amazing popes. I mean, we even right now tomorrow we're celebrating Pius V. The cardinal from that kind of oversaw Trent. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, if the Holy Spirit seems to be put men in these positions at times when they're needed, and so whether that's through some bureaucracy or through some kind of influence, or whether that's actually the Holy Spirit, I think two things be true at once. The Holy Spirit can work through us to bring that about. So sure, you know. Well, uh, sure. I mean, I think that they're going to probably go moderate. I really do. I think they are. I mean, I think Cardinal Burke, as holy and as profound he is, I think he's a little too on the one side of the spectrum that they're going to probably like. Plus, he's older. I mean, again, that hasn't. Yeah, I mean, politics. We hope that it's true, but I mean, politics is a part of this, though, too. I mean, it'd be unrealistic to think there's not some kind of politics going on now, but also too, I think even through that politics, the Holy Spirit can work. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, these times where the Cardinals are like in outside of session, whether it be at meals, whether it be whatever, they're not necessarily like influencing each other, but they're talking to each other and they're like, where are you guys at? What do you think? What's going on? And so that definitely would have some impact, I would imagine. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's usually I've found, at least in my experience, this has only been my fourth pope since I've been alive, but I do kind of find that, and I think if you look back at the history of the church, it's usually the person in general who's least expected. that would be the person. And so obviously Cardinal Burke or Urbo are not out of the realm of possibility. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe an African pope gets picked, taken. Um, right. So if you go into pope, you come out a cardinal. So I mean, I don't know, and I don't think Cardinal Burke is necessarily looking for it. So maybe that might make him the best candidate. But I also think that it's always probably the person that you least expect. So we can always theorize about who that may be, but it's going to be someone that we don't think about. So I don't know. Maybe it's a waste of energy even try. Um, but yeah, in a few days, it's going to be up to 137 of the Cardinals to figure that out, and we're going to trust the Holy Spirit's going to guide them. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think it's always kind of difficult to put it in these terms because I think what we look at instead, I don't like using the term left, right, or progressive or conservative or um, liberal, conservative, whatever it may be. I think it's more of orthodox and orthodox, and even the Cardinals. I mean, they have to by their oath uphold the church teaching. So I mean, you can say what you want about how different popes or different leaders, bishops, kind of portray their ideas, their thoughts. Sure, we can critique those things that are done off the cuff, but I also think you can't debate that the pope has never upheld the teaching. So at least from a ex cathedra, meaning as the Roman pontiff. So even bishops, I would say, if you read most of the bishop's writings, no matter what bishop it is, it's always in line with Catholic teaching. If it weren't, they wouldn't be eligible to be bishops or popes. So I think we should find some solace in that. And whoever is actually picked, or actually accepts, I should say, because that's really another factor too. Um, I think we would trust that just like foreign popes, they would uphold the teachings, and anything that they teach from the chair of Peter is going to be in line with those teachings and help the church. So yeah, again, I don't know if it really matters whether their politics are because even with Pope Francis, some people would say that he from being from South America, he definitely had a more maybe liberal perspective in his politics, but so what? You know, he still was the Pope. He still upheld the teachings, and even though maybe there was some question about what he said to reporters or maybe what he said personally, we've always had that with popes. Every pope since St. Peter has had an opinion of how things should go. I mean, I think we even call back to what happened between St. Peter and St. Paul. That you know, Paul went to Peter and was sort of like lambasting him for upholding the traditions of the Jewish people. But that was Peter's role. Peter found himself as being the apostle to the Jews, while Paul's role was the apostle to the Gentiles. And that was already kind of set up. And, whether this happened before the Council of Jerusalem or after the Council of Jerusalem, you could still say, well, it's not that Peter was trying to lead anyone astray. It wasn't that Peter was forcing Jewish custom on Gentiles or vice versa. He was actually trying to do what Paul upheld in other writings, saying that, well, hey, you don't want to lead anyone to scandal. And that's true. I mean, Paul himself wrote that in many of his letters about, don't as long as you're trying to avoid scandal, good, right? So like that came to mostly like, sacrificing idols or from eating meat that was sacrificed to idols. And Paul simply just said, well, if you're in the company of, people that do that, in order not to bring scandal, you want to be cognizant and reasonable, right? Because really what's coming from your heart is what matters rather than, the actual externals. And so the fact that Paul even approached Peter with this was sort of like, well, aren't you kind of being, a hypocrite there, Paul? But I think what Paul's trying to do is saying like, it's hard to live in both those worlds. So we need to come up with something that applies for both. And that's, I think, why Paul did that. And Peter obviously agreed. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we always want to be cognizant that these men that are picked to be the leaders of the church are men. they're themselves are fallible. So, like, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, as he started the beginning of his pontificate, he said, I'm a sinner, as we all are. And so good, good. I mean, he's recognizing that he's not divine. But when he taught things, they were infallible. And I think we would hold that for any pope. So good. And like I said last week, we have had plenty of popes that were corrupt, had concubines, maybe had lands, were corrupt with money, whatever it is. But no pope in the history of the Catholic Church, all 266 of them, have never promulgated anything contrary to the teaching of Jesus and his church. So I think there's something to be said about that. So yeah, I mean, we probably would want our guy, whoever that is, but I think in the long run it doesn't really matter, because whoever's going to be there is going to be led by the Holy Spirit and not going to teach anything that's going to be heretical. So great. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's more of us remember whoever's leading. I mean, because I think every time there's one of these conclaves, there's always this kind of maybe tension, maybe some fear, especially these days, where there's so much conflation between the political and the religious, right? So, I mean, or moral, we should say. I mean, we say in our own political system that there's such a conflation between, well, this is just a political opinion compared to this is a moral objectivity. I think we kind of let that go into any aspects of our life, and we tend to apply that to the church too. And so, yeah, it's not to say there wasn't a time when the church and the state were intimately entwined. Obviously, that was the case, but there was always still a distinction between the two. And so, I think we've lost sight of that distinction today. That the church is the church and the state is the state. And that's not to say there aren't moral issues that are in political realm that have answers and should be influenced by the faith or by the church. But there's still a distinction between those, and I think we see that in our political system. You're right. Yeah, change is definitely hard, no matter what the change is, whether it's for the good or for the bad. So someone told me the other day, change is the only constant in life, and I think that's true. So, yep, we have to prepare for that, but also recognize that change isn't bad. Even change we determine may be not beneficial to us can still bring a benefit. And maybe that benefit is discipline or faith or hope. So, charity. So, these are opportunities for us to grow in these virtues. So that's always a good thing. All right. Well, looks like that's it there, Mike. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to post this. I might just delete it because just the two of us. Although we did cover a lot of ground. So yeah, I don't know. There's nobody else in the Google Meet. So all right. Well, thanks for coming, Mike. Appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Next week, I think we're going to talk about more of. No, we didn't meet. I wasn't feeling well. I didn't want to get anyone else sick, so I just changed virtually. So no one came virtually. So just you, which is great. I'm glad you did. Maybe I'll just keep this on anyway because I think it was some good stuff. Next week though, we got Friends from Faith, so I'm not sure exactly what we're going to talk about. I don't know. I might talk about maybe the history of the conclave, why we have a conclave, why that came about. That might be a good topic. We kind of talked just about what happens in the conclave last week. So maybe leading up to this might be a good time since we'll be kind of right before we go into it. So I might do that. I might the topic may be why do we have a conclave, or why do we even elect a pope instead of appoint one or whatever it is. So that might be a good topic of discussion. Yeah, I think so. So I think we'll talk about that next week. So thanks for joining us. And I guess we'll see you next week or whenever we meet again, which I think is Monday, if I'm not mistaken. So, all right. We'll talk to you soon, Mike, and everyone else. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. God bless.